So since last time I did one of my favorite water decks, this time I'm going to do one of my favorite fire decks since water and fire are my favorite attributes in the game. This deck is a mix of Infernoble Knight, Flame Swordsman, and Destiny Hero Malicious, but you don't really need to run Destiny Hero Malicious. I just figured, why not, more link plays. We lost Barone to Floor, but I still think the deck has a relatively high ceiling. The big problem is just getting hit by Droll and Lockbird, which if it happens, it happens. But you can play through Ash and a lot of other interruptions like nobody's business. So getting into the deck profile, we have Renaud up first, Malgus, Turpin, Oliver, Ogier, and lastly Ricardetto. So you only run one of each in this deck because they are all once per turn, and some of them you can only use one of their effects. You can't use both, but most of them you can use both. So Ricardetto is going to be one of the ones that you can only use one of his effects, but he's really, really good to pair up with some of your non-engine and your Flame Swordsman, believe it or not. He has the ability where you can banish this card from your hand or your graveyard to special summon another Fire Warrior from your hand, but then your Warrior locked. And there are other plays that Warrior lock you in the deck, so it's not too big of a deal. You are usually typically pretty prepared for it, but you want to be wary that if you need to go for an Appaloosa play or anything like that, you're not going to be able to do that with Ricardetto's effect. Oh, it's also important to know that it makes the monster a tuner. His other effect is that when he's normal or special summoned, he can basically reborn a Fire Warrior. I believe it has to be level 4 or lower from your graveyard and special summon that monster. But you can only use one or the other with Ricardetto. Ogier is going to be the one that's your Foolish Burial, essentially, that sends other Infernoble Knights from deck to grave. And then he has the target to equip effect from grave, which is important to know because it's very important for your Angelica plays. Oliver has the ability to be sent from the hand, he has the ability to send another Infernoble Knight from the hand to the grave to special himself as a level 1 monster. And then he also has the ability, while he's in the grave, to target a Fire Warrior monster you control and equip to that monster. Also, it's important to note that the equipped monster could not be targeted if it's Oliver, and the equipped monster could not be destroyed by card effects if it's Ogier. Renaud is kind of like the key Infernoble piece, that's why he's so fancy. If you control a Fire Warrior monster of any kind, so it can even be like your Flame Swordsman, you can special him from your hand and grab back one of your equipped Infernoble Arms cards, or you can grab back a Fire Warrior from your grave. So he's a really good card. Probably one of the best extenders, if not the best extender in the deck. And then Malgus is a really interesting card because he has a Pot of Avarice effect, kind of attached to him, that's when he's sent to grave, you can target up to 3 Fire Warrior monsters and or Noble Arms equip spells, shuffle them into the deck as cost, and then draw 1 card. Also, he does have the target to equip effect from grave, which is important obviously for the strategy with your Angelica plays. And I believe he also has some added effect while it's equipped. Cannot be destroyed by battle. Turpin is another one of the ones that can equip from grave as well, and he also has the effect that he can special from grave or from hand, so that makes him really flexible and really good for different plays. But if he's special from grave, he's banished when he leaves the field. And that is it for the Infernoble Knight engine. Real quick for the supporters, we got 1 Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. This card is kind of our big monster negate and a card that you really want to see on your end board. As long as there's an equip spell down here, he can negate the effect of a monster once per turn by sending it to the graveyard. And he can actually special summon himself by banishing an equip spell from either this row down here or from your graveyard. So he's just a really, really good card to have as a 1-of in the deck. And then of course Fireflint Lady, an inherit summon, so that's really good. And not only that, but she can actually special summon a level 4 or lower Fire Warrior monster from your hand, so she's essentially a double extender. Alright, for the Flame Swordsman engine, you're going to be using 1 Salamandra. Its toolbox, you really don't need more than 1. And then 3 Fighting Flame Swordsmen, since this is essentially the starter of the deck. And since it's really a good card, you really want to see this in your opening hand, which is why we max out on this, and we also run 3 of the spell that searches this. So this card, right here, when it's normal or special summon, you can add any spell that mentions Fighting Flame Swordsman. And then when it's sent to grave, which you can actually do off of one of the cards you can search, you can dump the Salamandra card here, or you can dump another card that we run in our extra deck. Because you can send a monster that mentions Flame Swordsman from deck or extra deck to grave. So the combo is normal summon, search Flame Swords Realm, use Flame Swords Realm, send Swordsman, then trigger Swordsman, send this, then new chain, trigger this, add the spell trap. So it's pretty straightforward and it's pretty simple. It's a good normal summon to commit to for the deck. Alright, and then for the last engine, kind of little sub-engine, we're running 3 Malicious. It just kind of helps facilitate more link plays. It's also another card that we can send off of Flame Swords Realm to special out Flame Swordsman if we don't want to have to send that away for the Angelica plays, as I explained before. And we still end on the same board. Alrighty, and then for some non-engine, we are running 3 Effect Veiler here. And then 3 Infinite Impermanence. This can be anything you want. Whatever you think these 6 cards needs to be, it can be whatever you want. I personally just like having this 6 be negates that aren't once per turn. Especially because the deck is already really strong going first, so really, it's like if you lose the dice roll, you want to just hope a couple negates stick, and then you get to go. Then we got Call by the Grave, of course, kind of self-explanatory, takes care of hand traps, takes care of shifter, roll, that kind of thing. Instant Fusion, this is one of the cards we can use to cheat out Flame Swordsman, or we can also cheat out another card in our deck, being Fighting Flame Dragon. Monster Reborn, not too much to explain here. Another extender, great for decks like this where you're not really sure what you're going to get with your opening hand. 1 for 1, this is a really good card since we run a couple of level 1s like Fireflint Lady and Ricardetta, which are both really, really good extenders. Alright, and then triple Fighting Flame Sword, of course. This card is absolutely insane. This card has multiple different effects. The first effect can be used to search your Fighting Flame Swordsman from the deck to the hand, and since it's a quick play, you can do it in draw phase to avoid the draw, and which is phenomenal for the deck. Also, it can prevent the targeting of an effect that targets a monster that mentions Flame Swordsman, which I think is really, really cool. So if they try to like imperm your ultimate Flame Swordsman when you go for the pop, you can chain this if you have this set. So it's not just a searcher, it has multiple uses. And it also, of course, has the battle phase effect. When an attack is declared involving a fire warrior monster you control, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy it. So it's got a nice targeting destruction effect. It's a searcher, and on top of that, it also has the targeting prevention, which I think is busted. I would absolutely love to see them print more cards for this archetype. Next we have 1 Salamandra Fusion, and then the Flame Swords Realm. This card is kind of the heart and soul for this deck, I would say, since a lot of the plays center around this card sending things to the grave, so typically people are going to try to ogre this card, just so you know. But since we are running multiple engines, if they do hit this card and you have access to your other engine, say you have Noble Arms Museum, for example, which we max out on, then you're good, because you can just go into your Infernoble lines and set up a Charles and you're chilling. So Museum is a really important card and we max out on it, but we don't run Terraforming because our deck is already really, really weak to Droll and we want to try to avoid that interaction. Museum is absolutely cracked. If you guys don't know what Museum does, Museum, you pay 12 you can search a Infernoble Arm equip spell, and then after that, if you've searched an Infernoble Arm equip spell off of the effect, you can special a Noble Arms monster from the spell and trap zone that's equipped to a monster. So you can use it to extend, and you can use it to search, and it's not once per turn. It's a soft once per turn, so as long as you can get to multiple copies, which is really, really easy in this deck, you can keep comboing off and keep specialing monsters, which is absolutely insane. Alright, so for the Infernoble Arm spells, we got one Joyous, one Durendal, one Almace. Durendal essentially is kind of like your second copy of Rhoda. You can use it to search a level 5 or lower warrior monster from deck to hand. Joyous can add back a fire warrior monster from your graveyard to hand. Almace can equip another Infernoble Arms card from deck to that monster. Then they all have different effects that can be used if the monster that is equipped to them is sent to the grave. So Durendal can actually special summon a monster from grave if it's sent. Joyous can actually special summon a monster from hand, and Almace can actually just add back from banishment or from grave. So it's nice to sometimes think about which effect you're going to use ahead of time, because you're only able to use one or the other on each of these cards. And then of course we have 2 copies of Heritage of the Chalice and our Rhoda. Heritage of the Chalice I don't think you necessarily need to max out on, but since it's not searchable, you don't want to run just one. But we can actually recycle this card by using its effects, so that's important to note. And then Rhoda, of course, is the standard searcher for warrior deck. Add one level 4 or lower warrior monster from deck to hand. Also, it's important to note that Chalice can also help you play around your role, because it can add from deck or grave. Last card in the deck, we have Salamandra with Chain. This card is an equip trap, which kind of crazy, but basically you activate it by equipping to a fire warrior monster. It gains 700, and then you can basically Book of Moon a monster that your opponent controls, and it stays equipped. And then also on top of that, while it's in the graveyard, it basically has a Miracle Fusion effect, which is pretty crazy. So you can basically use this to remake Ultimate Flame. Alright, that's it for the main deck. Let's go ahead and get into the extra deck real quick. Alright, so for the extra deck, we got Angelica, Roland, Charles, and Charge Warrior. So since Baron's been banned, I've been playing Charge Warrior in this spot, and I think it's okay. It's still a draw 1, and there are plenty of lines where you can get to Synchro 6, so I don't think it's a horrible pick. But if there is a better warrior Synchro monster that anybody knows of that is either a level 6, a level 10, or a level 5, please let me know. Charge Warrior just seems kind of lackluster in this spot, but it's here for now. Charles, you need him to get into your Big Link 1, of course, which is essentially the win con of the deck. Roland is here because you can actually tag out into Roland using Angelica's quick effect. Whenever she's targeted by a card, you can chain, send a fire warrior monster from deck to grave, and then tag out into Roland, which essentially is going to set up your entire line into Charles. For the fusions, we got Ultimate Flame Swordsman, and Fighting Flame Dragon. Fighting Flame Dragon has a really cool equip effect where it can equip to a fusion fire warrior monster that you have, and it can make another attack during the battle phase. So this guy right here can actually get up to like 9,000, sometimes 10,000 attack, and then you can have him attack twice. So that's pretty crazy. Also, Ultimate Flame Swordsman has a quick effect as long as he's equipped with an equip spell to pop a monster and burn for 500. So he's good for time, and he can essentially OTK. Alright, for the Link engine, we have Appaloosa, of course, SP, Ferocious Flame, and then 1 Almirage and 2 Charles. We definitely run 2 Charles because there are definitely some games that are real grindy where you might end up making a second Charles. and there are decks like Kashtira that can rip this out before we get a chance to make it, so it's important to have a second one just in case. SP kind of speaks for herself. She's a warrior, she's a really meta-defining card, and if you can use her, you definitely should. Ferocious Flame fits really nice, and he's actually on theme. He is a floater that floats into a warrior monster upon destruction as long as it's a non-link warrior monster. And he gives all your other warrior monsters an extra 500. Plus he has an arrow that points down, so as long as he points here, SP can point here, and then we can make more link plays essentially. Almirage is a card that I'm not too sure about. It's taking the spot of Link Kuriboh right now. I'm not terribly upset with it, but I think that there's no reason why it couldn't be Anima either. Typically you're gonna want something that points down, and that's the biggest problem with Anima, is that it clogs up your zone, and what you need to make is a Link 1. So if Anima is sitting in your EMZ, there's no way for you to get rid of it unless you make a Link 2 like Ferocious Flame Swordsman with it, which can be done, but you have to play a lot harder around Anima than if you're able to make this. And like I said, most of the time you're not gonna have to make a Link 1, but the option is nice. That's gonna do it for the links. We do have a small Xyz package here. Typhon and Dempsey. Dempsey is another searcher, so there are gonna be certain hands where you actually can make a rank 4 and then use this to search, and then use his detach effect to get something in the grave, and that will get some plays rolling for you. Typhon is essentially the anti-branded card, or any decks that use a lot of monsters that have 3000 or more attack. You can summon this monster and they can activate the effects of those monsters, plus he has a bounce. Alright, that's going to be it for our deck profile today. If there's any cards that you guys think that I missed, please feel free to let me know down below. I'm always super open to hearing what people have to say about my builds and what people have to say about this game, so let's have a conversation in the comments. Also, if you guys want to support my channel, my Mercari is live in the description, and I've got some really cool cards listed on there, and I think that that'd be a really good way for you guys to support me while also still getting something pretty cool out of it. Thank you guys for checking out the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.